If you thought last week was wild weather-wise, hold on, because this week is coming in swinging with a full package of cold fronts, severe thunderstorms, late-season snow, and a heat wave building out west that is going to turn some heads. We've got a lot of ground to cover today, so let's get right into it. Let's start with the big temperature story, because the cold shot of air dropping into the central United States right now is genuinely impressive for early May. We're not talking slightly below average. We're talking 15 to 20 degrees below average in some areas. That kind of anomaly in May is the kind of thing that catches people completely off guard, especially after what felt like a warm and active start to the spring season. And the clearest sign of just how cold this air really is? Snow. Not in the mountains where you might shrug it off, but in Denver. Accumulating snow in Denver in May, and we're not talking a dusting either. Let's talk about the Colorado snow situation because this is legitimately one of the more interesting parts of this whole setup. Winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories, and winter storm watches have been issued and actually expanded across the mountain ranges of Colorado. In the higher elevations, we are not exaggerating when we say snowfall totals could be measured in feet. We're talking anywhere from 10 to 24 inches of snow possible in some of the mountain ranges between now and Tuesday night. That is a serious, bona fide late-season snowstorm for the Rockies. Now come down to Denver and the lower elevations, around that 5,000-foot range, and you're looking at roughly 2 to 4 inches of accumulating snow, with some spots potentially nudging even higher than that. It's a wet, heavy, fluffy snow, the kind that sticks to everything and makes for some pretty dramatic May scenery. Now, is late-season snow in Colorado unheard of? No, not exactly. But here's what makes it noteworthy. Colorado hasn't had a particularly snowy winter this season. Snowpack has been running below where it should be, so seeing a meaningful late-season storm like this rolling in is actually a bit of a welcome sight for that region, even if it catches people off guard on their morning commute. But the snow is only one piece of this story, because while Colorado is dealing with that cold blast, the clash between that cold air pushing in from the north and the warm, moist air surging up from the south is setting the stage for rounds of severe thunderstorms across a large portion of the central and southern United States. By the way, if you'd like specific weather forecasts for your region or city, please leave them in the comments. I'll answer them individually as time allows. Also, if you like the video and subscribe to my channel, you'd be very grateful. Now, let's move on. Let's walk through the severe weather timeline, starting with today and pushing into the days ahead. The immediate severe weather focus today is across Missouri and Illinois, where a slight risk for severe storms has been issued. The dynamics here are reasonably favorable. You've got that classic setup of cold air diving in from the north, southwest winds pumping moisture up from the Gulf, and the clash of those two air masses providing the lift needed to fire thunderstorms. The main threats are damaging winds and large hail, with the cold front acting as the primary trigger for storm development. Now, as you push further south into Oklahoma, northern Texas, and Arkansas, the situation gets more conditional. And that word conditional is important. There is a capping inversion in place across that region, which is basically a layer of warm air higher up in the atmosphere that acts like a lid on a pot. It suppresses storm development until temperatures at the surface get hot enough to break through. Down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, afternoon highs Tuesday could push into the low 90s, which isn't far from the all-time record for this date, sitting around 96 degrees. So the question isn't really whether the ingredients are there, it's whether that cap breaks in time to allow storms to develop. If the cap does break Tuesday afternoon or evening, the Dallas-Fort Worth area could be looking at isolated to scattered severe thunderstorms with large hail and damaging winds being the primary threats. That threat also extends into Arkansas and potentially further south. But again, conditional. About a 30% chance for severe storms in northeastern Texas, and even lower odds the further south and into central Texas you go. Wednesday is where this setup really opens up, and I want you to pay attention here. By Wednesday, that cold front begins to slow down and stall. And that is exactly what makes mid-spring cold fronts in the south so dangerous. They run out of momentum. The push from the north weakens, the front stalls, and what you're left with is a boundary. a zone where warm, unstable air and cooler, drier air sit right next to each other for an extended period, and that boundary becomes a highway for repeated rounds of strong to severe thunderstorms. The capping inversion on Wednesday is weaker, particularly across central and southeast Texas. That means storms are more likely to fire, and fire more explosively when they do. The slight risk for severe storms on Wednesday has been expanded significantly, covering central and southeast Texas, pushing into Louisiana, stretching across Mississippi, and into Alabama. Wednesday afternoon into Wednesday night is the window to watch. Large hail, damaging winds, and the possibility of an isolated tornado across that entire corridor from southeast Texas all the way through Louisiana, Mississippi, and into Alabama and Tennessee. If you live anywhere in that zone, Wednesday is not a day to be caught off guard. Now let's talk about what happens after the severe weather threat, because the story doesn't end there. As that cold front continues to sag southward into Wednesday night and Thursday, the focus shifts toward a heavy rain setup for the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. We're talking a decent soaking for areas from the mid-Atlantic up through New England. Not severe at that point, but persistent and at times heavy rainfall along that frontal boundary. And then, as the front keeps pushing south into Thursday and beyond, it finally reaches some areas that have genuinely been desperate for rainfall. Southern Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas. This is a welcome sight for a region that has been running dry. The water vapor content along this boundary is going to be intense, and under the right dynamics, some areas of Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina could see very heavy, even torrential rainfall at times. That does raise the possibility of isolated flash flooding, so it's worth keeping an eye on as we move through the latter part of the week. Let's pivot now to Mother's Day weekend, because I know that's on a lot of people's radar. Out west, a low-pressure system has been on our radar for several days, and while it's looking a bit less potent than it did even 24 hours ago, it still looks like it will track across the southern United States around Mother's Day weekend. Right now, Sunday, Mother's Day itself, is the time frame to watch. The most likely area for showers and thunderstorms on Mother's Day is centered around North Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Nebraska, and extending back into Missouri. It's not going to be a washout everywhere, but for folks in those areas, it's probably worth having a backup plan for any outdoor Mother's Day activities. Further west, the story is dramatically different, and not in a good way. While the eastern two-thirds of the country continues dealing with cool northwest flow and below-average temperatures, the west is doing the exact opposite. The ridge of high pressure that has been building over the western U.S. is not retreating. It's expanding and deepening. And as we move toward May 12th and 13th, that ridge is really going to sink its teeth in. We are looking at the potential for a serious, intense heat wave building across the western United States. Not just warm, we're talking widespread triple digits, low 100s across many areas, and in Southern California and the Arizona desert, temperatures could potentially climb into the low 110s. That is dangerous, oppressive heat, and it's going to build and intensify rather than back off quickly. Meanwhile, across the Great Lakes, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and even stretching down into Georgia, Wednesday morning temperatures are going to be brutal in the opposite direction. Lows in the 30s and 40s for a large portion of the region. Upper 40s, even as far south as Georgia. So you've got a sharp, dramatic temperature gradient running right through the middle of the country. Freezing cold in the east, scorching heat in the west. That kind of contrast in mid-May is really something to see from a meteorological standpoint. So here's the bottom line for the week ahead. If you're in the Midwest or Ohio Valley, the cold front comes through today, and tomorrow brings that cold air crashing in behind it. Grab a jacket, it's going to feel more like early April than May. If you're in the Southern Plains, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, or Alabama, Wednesday is your highest risk day for severe weather, and you want to have your plans and your shelter options sorted out well in advance. If you're in Colorado, enjoy the late season snow, or at least be careful driving in it. And if you're out west, enjoy the warmth while it's still manageable, because that heat building toward mid-May is going to be serious and potentially record-breaking. It's a dynamic, complicated weather week, and we'll be right here tracking all of it every step of the way. Stay weather aware, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next update.